Hi, I'm Jeremy, and today I'm going to show you a really light pick up and deliver game by the name of Golden Horn. This is designed by Leo Colovini, who has a flair for creating abstract games that play nicely and quickly and sometimes chaotically. This is not necessarily his most chaotic game. It's really more of a light, family-friendly game. It plays from 2 to 4 players for ages 8 and up. I'm going to take a moment to show it to you, and then I'll come back and give you my thoughts on the game. Okay, so here I've set up what would be a 3-player game in progress of Golden Horn, and the game, you'll notice, has this modular board made up of these various C segments, 2 ports where your ships will be able to pick up goods, and then a number of these tiles, these are actually included in the expansion, which is, pardon me, called Domino Del Mar, which I always play with. I think that enhances the game considerably. And it comes with these soldiers. So these tiles here and these soldiers are expansion things, so be aware of that. But the basic gist of the game is that it's a pick up and deliver game where you're going to be controlling a fleet of 3 of these ships that will bear your flag. And you're going to be transporting goods and soldiers from one port to another. So we have Constantinople on this side and Venice on this side. The game is pretty simple in execution. Each turn you're going to have 2 possible actions. Your first action, let's say that I am this player here controlling this pink ship with the lion flag, is that you could play cards, and you'll have a handful of cards. They have 2 uses on them. Otherwise they're all the same, except for the color of the border. You could play cards that are 2 of the same color that match the sail of one of the ships that's on the board with goods, to send pirates after that ship. So, for example, if I played 2 blue cards, I could attack this ship here because it has a blue sail and take one of its goods, and then I would immediately be able to add that to my warehouse. So that's one way that you're going to be scoring points, by collecting those goods. So that is an optional action if you want to spend the cards to do that. But then you have a mandatory action on your turn, which is to move one of your ships. By default, your ships will just move 1 space. So, for example, I could just move a ship like this or this ship like this, right? But there are special rules that enable them to go much further during a turn. So you'll notice this ship here has pink sails. If it was going to move 1 space, no 2 ships could occupy the same space, so it'll immediately move to here in 1 move. Now the next space on the board is pink. Since that matches the color of one of the sails of the ship, it would move here. Then the next space here is orange. If I wanted to, on my turn, I could play an orange card to move ahead another space. Now you notice these 2 spaces are occupied, then here's a yellow space. If I played a yellow card, I would get to move to that space, skipping over those 2 occupied spaces. So you can see that even though you only get 1 ship movement, 1 space, each turn, you could augment that by using the ship sails and by using the colors on the board and your cards. So that ship's almost made it all the way across to the other port. When that ship finally pulls into the port, any goods that are in it will be put into that player's warehouse. Then it will stay in that port until the player decides to make it leave later. So when a ship leaves port, that's when it's going to pick up goods. So there's always going to be 9 goods, either soldiers or cubes, in the port. And you'll populate that from a bag after the cubes have been taken. And when the ship leaves the port, you're going to pick up all of the soldiers and put them in your ship. Or you could pick up, oops, pardon me, technical issue. Or you could pick up all of the cubes of any one color. The exception being that a ship cannot carry cubes that match the color of its sail. So here we have red cubes, blue cubes, and orange cubes. I could not pick up the blue or orange. I could pick up these 3 red, however, and put them in my ship. And then I would leave port into the first unoccupied space. So, over the course of the game, you're going to be moving these ships back and forth. Something that's, I guess, important to mention is that as a ship goes into a port, it's going to get cards based on how many colors are held on its sail. So a ship with 2 sails, 2 colors on its sail, will get 2 cards. The player will get 2 cards for bringing that one into port. The ships with just 1 color, they get 3 cards because it's harder to navigate the sea with those ships. And the ships with 3 different colors on their their sails will get 1 card for getting successfully to the other port. It's important when you're placing these ships to always make sure that you are facing them in the direction that they're going, because ships, you can see this one's going this way and this one's going this way, and you don't want to lose track of that during turns, and they could be hopped over regardless of which direction they are facing. As you collect these soldiers, you are going to be able to turn them in to get these cards. So let's say this player had 3 soldiers in their warehouse. They would be able to turn them in for one of these cards. For example, this one here. It requires 3 soldiers, you could see. They would turn those in, just put them back in the supply, and then they would get this card, which would be worth 6 points at the end of the game. Essentially, the soldiers have conquered this area. That's one way to score points, and it's also one way to end the game. If ever all of these cards are taken, that would trigger the end of the game. The second way to end the game is to collect in your warehouse a cube of each color, at least one of each color, and then choose to declare that you have that. That is optional. If you feel that you're in the lead, though, it would probably be advantageous. So these cubes at the end of the game, they're going to score 1 point each. And then if you could form sets of unique colors, they will also score you. So a set of 4 would score 1 point extra, a set of 5 would score 2 points extra, and a set of all 6 would score 4 points extra. So that is another way to get points. The third thing that would end the game would be if the bag of cubes runs out and it could not refill one of these ports. So those are the basic rules. There are some additional rules with how these soldiers come out, but that gives you, I think, a good gist of the game. I will mention that the game does have a slightly different setup for 2 or 4 players, and that would include this piece here. So this would get placed here in a 2-player game, or this side with 3 spots face up in a 4-player game, splitting up this area. And that would require players to stop at this port during their turn if they were moving their ships here. So unless the port was entirely filled up, all 2 or all 3 spaces, the ships are required to stop there before they could continue on. So it just keeps the players from being able to hop all the way over when the board gets crowded with that many more ships. In a 2-player game, you use fewer sides of these as well. So the game does scale nicely for other players, but overall I think that gives you a good sense of how the game plays. Alright, so that is Golden Horn, or I should say Golden Horn with its expansion, which I do think adds to the game considerably by giving you another endgame condition and another scoring possibility. You are less beholden to the luck of the draw, I think, in that when you're playing with the expansion, although if you are lucky to get a lot of soldiers in the port at one time, you could really run away with the game point-wise, I think. The game has a really fun mechanism where the players are going to be able to sail all the way across the board in just one move, even though you only get that one move each turn. Really being able to exploit that system between your cards and the positioning of other players is a lot of fun, and it gives you a sense of accomplishment, even though it's really just happenstance that the chips have fallen into the right places. Everybody's going to be so caught up in their little planning and trying to corral their 3 ships into the perfect positions that in most cases people are going to be paying attention to what colors of cubes each other are collecting, and so sometimes the game is almost going to be suddenly over before it even begins, and that's usually a good sign that a game hasn't worn out its welcome. This game, like I said, plays in about 30 minutes or so, and for as simple as it is, that time flies by. I do think that with the expansion, the game works better. Like I said, I would suggest that the base game is almost more of a children's game, and then it becomes more of a game that gamers could get into with the expansion. It's not that it becomes more complex, it's just that it gives you more than one thing to do. So you could have some semblance of a different strategy, some recourse to respond to what the other players are doing, which doesn't exactly exist in the base game. That being said, though, with a game with these little bits with the little soldiers are riding in the ship, you can't beat that for this sort of filler game. So there's some definite component appeal to be had here. And I think that the game's really unique and it explains pretty easily, and people seem to have a lot of fun with it. So if you want to seek a copy, I would not discourage you. So I guess those are my thoughts on Golden Horn, and thank you for watching.